everyone. Welcome to the live chat for July 27th, 2022. So, not much really going on around the region. As you know, and probably have emailed me about, we all are waiting for some rainfall, as we haven't seen much in the way of rainfall recently. So that has certainly become a concern. We'll also keep an eye on the tropics. Not much going on, so we'll talk about what's going on with that. And of course, I'll take your questions while we're also keeping an eye on the Mets Yankees game. So far, Pete Alonso's already doing his job and very impressive. And how about that square off of Scherzer versus Judge? That was impressive. That was a heck of an at bat. So some very interesting stuff going on. Baseball, not so much with weather, but we'll talk about a couple of things here for this evening. And of course, I will take your questions as we go forward. So let's take a look at some of the data here. Here we have the tropical Atlantic, and you can see not much really going on. We have a wave right about here. We have dry air here, and more dry air coming off the African coast. It shows up very nicely here on the analysis for the dust. There's just a ton of dust, Sahara dust, coming across the Atlantic, and that's really just killing this season so far, which is great news. Let's be honest, the forecast for this year was very active, historically active. I stayed away from the historically active, but I thought, okay, we have La Nina, we have favorable conditions. Sure, the negative AMO will probably blunt some of the intensity of the storms, but it should be a pretty active season, so above normal. Again, I stay away from the historic wording. This has been a far more quiet season. Now, that can change rapidly once you get rid of the Sahara dust, but as it stands right now, not much is cooking, and when take a look at the model guidance, the European, you can use the GFS if you want. Not much really cooking at all. You see a lot of low pressure systems starting to show up as the MJO shifts right around the African coast, so maybe that'll start to break up some of this dry air, but there's no sign whatsoever of any storm. Now, the 500 millibar pattern itself, well, it's favorable that if anything should develop, we're going to have to watch out for this area right here and, of course, up the East Coast. But won't matter much if nothing really develops. So we'll keep an eye on it, see what happens here and there. Meanwhile, we are patiently waiting for some rainfall. Now, we have a warm front on the way, and this warm front is producing some lifting. I'm not really seeing a lot of frontogenesis here. We have plenty of moisture, so any shower or thunderstorm that starts to organize will be capable of producing a brief heavy downpour. And the Mets just scored again. Oh man, nice. All right, up 2-0. Wonderful. The area of precipitable water values here are starting to rise with our warm front passage, but there isn't much in the way of frontogenesis here. At the surface, not really all that impressive. At the mid levels, again, nothing really to write home about. So I think that some of the mesoscale model guidance here, like the NAM for this evening on through the early morning hours, and the HRR, let's refresh to see if we get more hours in here. There we go. I think this is a bit overdone. Now, it could rapidly develop, sure, and it could ride along the moisture gradient here, but based on the observations I'm seeing here, deep moisture convergence, I'm not really seeing any support of any type of development that the model guidance is showing. So maybe via this gradient here, we could get a line of showers and thunderstorms, but not really seeing anything that says to me, hey, this could be a stormy night for the region, like what the HRR and NAM's trying to show. Instead, what I'm seeing here is just a few pop-up showers, maybe an isolated thunderstorm with this warm front. Cold front isn't really impressing me much either. Taking a look at the 500 millibar PVA for Friday evening, And it's a little bit stronger than what we've been seeing in the model guidance, but it's still rather disjointed from the rest of the features in the atmosphere. I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so this is what we call a positively tilted trough. See that? When you have a trough in this orientation, that means it's positively tilted. What does that mean? It means that showers and thunderstorms are going to be racing out ahead of the primary lifting. Okay. At 700 millibars and 850 millibars, we have enough lifting for some scattered showers and thunderstorms. But notice your cold air transport is racing out ahead of that PVA. So it's destabilizing the atmosphere ahead of time. And also, your jet streak at 850 millibars is already moving off the coast. So you have different features in the atmosphere that can support severe thunderstorms, but they're all disjointed. Their timing's off. So you get a few strong thunderstorms and maybe an isolated severe thunderstorm with gusts over 65 miles per hour. But for the most part, you're looking at a few widely scattered thunderstorms with occasional to frequent lightning because of all the moisture in the atmosphere. But the wind gusts will be around 40 miles per hour and they'll be widely scattered. So there's going to be many locations that won't see any at all. So this is a problem in terms of trying to break this dry weather pattern because, again, and we'll pull up the mesoscale guidance here. This all looks good and dandy, in terms of rainfall, let's say for tonight into tomorrow morning. But the reality is that a lot of this gets eaten away. A lot of this doesn't become reality because you have such a dry, low-level environment that most of these showers and thunderstorms get eaten away. And a warning sign against that forecast is when you take a look at the skewed T charts. This is at eastern Pennsylvania. Let me zoom in here. This is right around Reading, I would say. And you can see that there's still a nice little area of dry air at 700 millibars. And then there is our dry level down here again at around 1,000 millibars. Now let's move this towards central New Jersey. And we'll pull up this plot. And it's even more pronounced where you get this dry layer right here. So that's what's been killing our storms, this little pocket of dry air. And then you get another pocket of dry air at around 650 to 700 millibars. So anything that's coming into this environment is just getting eaten up. So then it's hard to buy into the HRR guidance in that type of environment where you have so much dry air to overcome. So again, I know I said this last week and I was kind of beating a dead horse, but we need a widespread heavy rainfall event of basically a stratospheric rainfall event where basically you're not dealing with convective nature, but you're dealing with just isotropic lifting, all right, via, let's say, a frontal passage or a remnant tropical low pressure system to overcome this environment. That's how you get rid of this little dry area. Again, let's go to a couple different locations. Northern New Jersey, we'll plot that sounding. Same signature. See that little kink right there? That's what's killing us. That's what's causing these thunderstorms to fail. Let's say Hudson River Valley. Same signal. And we'll even go to Connecticut. And again, same signal showing up. So when you start to see this throughout the entire region, I think the only exception might be Long Island. Let's take a look at that. The last time I checked, it wasn't nearly as bad. Yeah, no, there it is, even on Long Island. Same signature. As long as you have that signature in place, it's going to be very, very difficult to overcome this dry weather pattern. via convective nature. So we need a change of season is what we need, or a tropical system, which thus far we're just not seeing. Now, in terms of the seasons itself and in terms of the driving factors, La Nina remains in place. It is weak in terms of the sea surface temperatures. The SOI values, which, as you know, I follow mostly, they are falling off. They are starting to match what the sea surface temperatures are saying. And the reason why is because we're seeing more and more contributions of a positive nature in the pressure field. So since about, say, mid-July, we've seen more and more of an environment of these positive signals showing up, and that's led to a steady weakening. Beforehand, it was perpetually negative. So we're starting to see La Nina starting to weaken in both the monthly and seasonal values, and that's generally where I look for when I want to see what the real influence of La Nina is on the 500 millibar pattern. I expect that to continue to be a theme. By the time we get to mid-October, I think we're going to be very close to a neutral end-zone state in the SOI values. So what that means is that I expect these values to be closer to anywhere between 1 and 5. And perhaps the seasonal values more in between 6 and 10. So I think that's where we're heading towards as we move forward. I can't see us going positive all the way through August and September. So I do expect some negative phases in the daily contributions, but that is essentially what we're seeing here in the data for our ESNO, for our tropical forcing. In terms of the MJO, it is pretty quiet. As long as it's staying around this circle of death, that's what I like to call it, because basically it eliminates the MJO influence. Okay, so we're seeing that quite a bit. It tries to peak in around phase 4 and 5. This time period, right around early August, basically late next week, is when we could see a little burst of heat. Now, I just want to pull that up real fast and bring up the 850 millibar temperatures. First of all, for this weekend, if you have plans this weekend, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I mean, you're talking about 80s, low humidity, sunny skies. Get out there and enjoy it. But there is a surge of heat that comes in for the end of next week. Now, I want to caution you on this. I know that there's some model guidance out there that's throwing out 100s, 101, stuff like that. However, I think that's a bit overdone. I think that on Thursday and Friday we'll have a couple of hot days. We'll be probably in the mid 90s, maybe pushing up to the upper 90s, and then we're going to back off. Okay? So, unless we're talking about Newark specifically, and we've been through that discussion, I don't see the same type of intensity of heat that we saw in the previous event, at least not right now. And the reason why is because the models already are starting to back off from that. The 850 millibar temperatures are a lot lower than what they were in the 12Z guidance, and we'll see if that theme continues again, but I think it will. And you can see it rapidly gives way as we go forward. And what this basically tells me is that the cold fronts are starting to win this battle. See, in the other event, we had the cold fronts come in, but they'd stall and die, and the Western Atlantic Ridge was pumping in the heat. But this time, you get a surge of heat, and now you're seeing signals here of the cold front being able to move through the region and transport cooler, dry air into the region a lot faster, basically within 48 hours rather than within 84 hours. So I think that we see a burst and then a collapse, and not as bad as what we saw in the last event. So with that, I am going to take your questions. Wow. Why are people... Wow. Holy smokes. Okay. Well, I guess YouTube's having some issues. I'm sorry, guys, about that. But you know, my wife's doing the best she can, as you know. Wow. Yeah, no, I understand. James, it's just me and my wife.
You know what? Even if there was more moderating, I wouldn't even do anything because YouTube's options for what you can do are so limited.
I know. I know. It's funny. It's funny. I don't. You know, the problem is that it's a small channel, relatively. So we do what we can. I do apologize, but at the same time, we will work it out and figure it out. But in the meantime, I'm going to go to the live chat here in the premium section, and I got some questions I'm going to answer. Looks like the Mets are doing well. That's good. All right, let's see here. So glad the intense heat is over. Not fun. I agree. I am not a fan of the intense heat. That is for sure. Let me put this on here. So I totally get what you mean. I am not a fan. Union County brief downpour from the last front on Monday, but everything got really dry quick after still the place where showers and thunderstorms go to die. Yeah, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna really need to fundamentally change this low level environment. And to be honest, going into the summer, I was thinking, you know what? With this tropical air around, we get some thunderstorms. I wasn't expecting there to be this type of dry layer of air, but it really has developed quite a bit, and it kind of makes me wonder in terms of the urban to heat island effect and how that could be influencing the gradients and how that could be enhancing this moisture gradient issue that we're having. So I'm trying to figure that out and trying to study what is causing that for future forecasts to see how to forecast for that better. Because it's kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Intense 250 millibar low in the eastern Pacific between the west coast and Hawaii, plus still the persistent low north of Greenland and the Arctic. Yep. You know, what's going to be interesting as we move towards the fall and winter, with a neutral season, you're going to see a more robust subtropical jet stream, but it's not going to overwhelm the polar jet stream. They're both going to be on equal footing. So those are the type of years where you can get some pretty impressive phasing events in the fall and winter, leading to widespread heavy precipitation events. So I'm going to be very interested to see if that becomes a theme and whether we can get the high latitude blocking to really start to support that. So keep an eye out. If we see an upper level low to the east of Greenland, to the east of Hawaii, and we start to see a upper level low around the Aleutian Islands, then late fall and winter could be very interesting around here. I'm not saying above normal snow. I'm just saying it's going to be very interesting, very active. In terms of whether you'd see above normal snow or whatnot, that would all depend on the exact storm tracks, the type of cold air masses we're dealing with, stuff that I don't know yet. I kind of want to see the Siberian snow growth and all that stuff. But we have time to get into that. But as you can tell, I am starting to do some of the research for that for the winter forecast already. I expect minimal, if any, precipitation from these fronts in my part of Union County. Yeah, you could add Monmouth, Ocean, pretty much the entire northern mid-Atlantic. I think you'll get a few locations that'll pop up with some pretty good thunderstorms in terms of heavy rainfall, but I don't buy what the HRR or the NAM's trying to show for tonight into tomorrow morning. We'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong. I would like to be wrong. I like to see grass that actually looks like green, you know. Looks like Sahara dust will keep the tropics quiet for a few more weeks. Looks like it. We're seeing a lot of support for August, which is just next week, for more activity, for a rapid increase. We'll see if that actually happens. Again, we have to get rid of this dust. If we don't get rid of the dust, it isn't changing. How long do these plumes of Sahara dust typically last? Usually, the past couple of years, they pop up in late June and dissipate in early August. This one, there's some debate as to whether it dissipates in early August because the MJO is kind of really uncertain right now. So normally in La Nina years it ends faster, but we haven't seen any indication of that. So what you normally see in La Nina years is the Sahara dust influence starts to collapse right about now, and then you see a rapid uptick in activity for August and especially September. We'll see if that holds true or not. What about southern New Jersey shore area, etc.? They're kind of under the same gun in terms of the rainfall potential. Now let me go back to our map here. Okay, so in this scenario here, I'm seeing a lot more support for isotropic lifting and some convective lifting over the northern portion of our warm front here, closer to the low pressure system. I'm not seeing much development down here. Now, the idea is that this cluster right here is going to rapidly intensify. When I take a look at the, let's refresh this for a second. Take a look at the infrared satellite picture. I'm not seeing any rapidly cooling cloud tops. That'd be my first signal that we're seeing convection really developing and driving towards the Jersey Shore. I'm not seeing that anywhere in not even in the water vapor, any type of signal of like a little shortwave that could enhance this. So when I study the HRR guidance, or the NAM, but we'll stick with the HRR here. We'll refresh this real fast. You see, what it's trying to show here is this rapid growth, but thus far, I really haven't seen that really materialize while we've been chatting. I figure, okay, we'll know if the HRR is onto something because during this chat, we'll see these thunderstorms start to blossom. But thus far, they really haven't. And so that makes this idea here rather questionable. Because this cluster for early tomorrow morning, around 3 a.m., is driven by this developing. And thus far, we really haven't seen that. Let's see, more questions. Okay. Long-range thoughts, Sal. What's the honest guy's feeling for tropics? Do you think we're still at risk, meaning tri-state, for remnant direct impacts? In terms of the 500 millibar pattern itself, yes, it's very favorable. Okay, you have the, in fact, here, let me go back to the maps again. And let me pull up this here. Here we go. So when I'm taking a look at the guidance here, I'm seeing between the GFS and the European the same signal, which is essentially your Western Atlantic ridge and your ridge over the plains is creating a lot of intense heat, split by this trough. And because of this trough, you're seeing this open transport here of moisture being lifted up the coast. So as a result, we're seeing the potential for any type of tropical system to basically march northward in that respect. What I'm wondering now, what I'm concerned about now is that this dry air limits the number of storms, so that aspect might be significantly lower than the forecast. But in terms of 500 millibar pattern itself, that's pretty much been dead on, and this pattern would support a storm track up the East Coast. So we'll see how that takes place. Is the PDO capable of some of the La Nina type polar jet amplifications, at least locally? The PDO and La Nina, the PDO is basically has the same type of influence as La Nina does in the tropics in terms of the 500 millibar configuration. If the PDO is negative, which, let's see here, which we see is somewhat negative here. It's a weak negative signal right now. That supports a nice heat ridge here and supports a ridge here and usually weakness here. And what it does is that it amplifies the polar jet stream. So the question is, as we head towards winter, how does that play out in terms of the 500 millibar configuration? There's going to be a question about whether or not any type of stratospheric warming influence will overcome the PDO, or if it'll actually lead to a feedback process. I don't know that answer yet. That's something that we're still studying. Looks like heat returns by the end of the week. Does Newark and other places make a run at 100 again? I would say this. I would say Newark, you always have to leave open the potential for a 99 or 100 degree temperature reading, especially with the urban heat island effect. But it's only going to be for a day, not like 5. How quiet is the tropical Atlantic? Even the GFS can't spin up a tropical system over the next 2 weeks. I know. I believe you. Best decision he's made this year was moving Jones to Sahara. Yeah, I'm surprised he's playing that well. Okay. All right. All right. Look, the only person being a moderator is my wife right now. Period. So let's.
I don't have the authority to make anybody moderators anyway.
Okay. All right. Everyone relax. Everyone relax. Let's see. Just saw Mike Trout has a rare condition, T5 vertebrae. He says he's going to play again, but well, let's see how that plays out. I hope. God, that guy has some bad luck, bad team, and bad health. That's just rough. But that's what happens. That's part of the risk of signing those big contracts. Now let's see what's going on in YouTube land. Let's see here. All right. So in terms of moderators, look, guys. Right now, I'm just doing my wife. She's doing the best she can. There's no reason to add right now. Unfortunately, there's just some people who are losers. And whether you had 10 moderators or 1 moderator, sometimes it doesn't matter. Again, YouTube also has a limitation on what we could do about that type of stuff. What makes Newark a lot hotter than most of New Jersey? Urban heat island effect. Okay. Basically, this is because you have an airport, you have jets, you have concrete, you have a lot of heat being locked in because of the concrete, and that's what you call urban heat island effect. And what happens is that warm air or heat basically feeds back on itself, which enhances your temperatures. Now, Newark is pretty impressive in that respect because you got highways, you have power stations, you have the airport, obviously, so you have a lot of different factors there. As opposed to the rest of New Jersey, like you go to northwestern New Jersey or you go to even central New Jersey, you have nowhere near that type of development. So that's why you see that so much in Newark. And also there's some debate as to whether you get a bleed over effect also from New York City itself. All right, let's see here. Early August, there's going to be a lot of tropical storms. The potential is definitely there. Okay, historically, that's when you would see a lot of your tropical systems. It looks like the Yankees are trying to mount a comeback. That should be interesting. Let's see. So, like more rain near western Pennsylvania. Okay. Let's see. What warm water near the western Atlantic allows for lower pressure and more trough closer to land? Okay, well, that's typical of an AMO effect. Basically, the AMO is when you get colder water here and warmer water here. In other years, you can get the reverse, where you get cooler water here and warmer water here. Now, one factor that remains sustained is that you get what's called the Gulf Stream, okay, which originates down here in the Caribbean, moves into the Eastern Gulf of Mexico. In fact, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, so it comes up into the Eastern Gulf of Mexico, cuts through the Florida Keys, and heads up the coast. It is this Gulf Stream that actually keeps us, that allows us to be in a temperate climate in the United States, in the eastern United States. If we did not have this Gulf Stream, we would actually end up being a lot colder than what we are. So that's something that definitely you want to keep an eye on. There is some debate as to whether or not the Gulf Stream is weakening. I don't buy it. I don't see any support for that yet, but there are some who do.
Okay.
Let's see. Is there another heat wave expected for next week? Jeez. Okay, so everyone needs to chill out on YouTube.
James was attacking another person in the chat. I said his behavior was uncalled for, and now he's coming at me.
Okay, so everyone chill.
Like I don't want to block anybody, but
right. Let's all relax. Okay? I mean, it's weather. There's no reason to. It's not high school. Jeez. Is there another heat wave expected for next week? Briefly.
Oh, okay. He's done.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, block them. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Usually about 4 degrees warmer in Newark. Yep. All right. Let's see. That and okay. Card brings up a point about Newark. That and Newark temperatures are from the airport, which is probably the single hottest location in the entire state. It definitely can be. There is a lot of debate as to whether or not we need to recalibrate those temperature, the thermometers. So that's going to be interesting to see how the National Weather Service responds to that over the next couple of weeks to see whether or not that is the case. But Newark is a scenario where you have, like you said, Card, very good point, winds coming off the Hudson Highlands. You have a urban heat island effect. You have New York City's urban heat island effect, and you have airports, and you possibly have a miscalibration in your temperature equipment. So you add all those factors together, and there you go. That's what leads to your above normal temperatures. Okay, let's see here. Okay, the water is colder in the subtropics, so that could allow more ridging over the central Atlantic. Well, understand, when we have it below normal, you still have very, very warm water here. And I still like the idea of a robust Western Atlantic ridge here. And in this scenario here, in this area right here, still below normal heights as a response to that. You still have your intertropical convergence zone that remains very active. And you can see what the potential is here. You have your tropical waves marching along here, and even some of them have a little bit of a spin to them, but because of all this dry air, it's just choking everything out. Once this is overcome, I think we start to see those tropical depressions and storms becoming more frequent. Saw that London high temperature that got so much coverage was from Heathrow Airport right by one of the runways. I think that the way that the British handle their temperatures, that they don't, it's sheltered away from the actual runways. Like they don't put it near the runway, so to speak. It's near the airport, but the way that they have it structured is that the sensors are protected away from any aircraft, and that's actually a decree from like the Queen or some nonsense like that. Or not nonsense. It's just funny to say the Queen demands it. It's like what? Okay, but that's a decree in the way that they set it up. Here's the thing, right? When I look to see whether a temperature is bogus, what I do first is before jumping to conclusions that it's in the wrong place or by a heat engine or airport or something like that nature, I want to see whether the 850 millibar temperatures support the temperature. If it supports the temperature, I'm more likely to buy into the record high than not. So, for example, If I see a temperature in Newark spiking to 101 degrees, but the 850 millibar temperatures throughout the region are around 18 degrees Celsius, I know that there's something wrong. There's some sort of miscalibration. Someone put a jet too close to the reading. Something bad happened. But if you're telling me I'm around 21 degrees Celsius and I'm getting a reading of around 99, 100 degrees, that to me is far more supportive. If I'm getting 28, 30 degree temperatures at 850 millibars, then, and you're telling me I'm seeing a high temperature of 105 or 110, in the right conditions, i.e. you get enough mixing, that again is supportive. So you see what I'm doing here is that I'm looking to see whether the mid-levels support that low-level environment to begin with. If it does, then I put more weight on that temperature observation. If it doesn't, then I'm more inclined to say something fishy is going on here and something's not right. And so that needs to be analyzed and looked at. Is there potential for flash flooding on Friday afternoon? Great question. Okay, so let me pull up the precipitable water values here. It's right there. Okay, give me 2 seconds. Scherzer's dominating as always. Very nice. He looks pissed. Okay, so we'll get to Friday. Okay, so when I'm seeing this signature here, this tells me that the best potential for your heavier rainfall is actually off the New Jersey coast here. So what this tells me, what this signal tells me again, is that everything's racing off the coast relatively quickly. I can't rule out a heavy downpour that could lead to localized flash flooding and urban flooding, but it will not be a widespread event. It will be very localized, and you're more likely to see amplification of your showers and thunderstorms right on the Jersey Shore and then pushing off and just south of Long Island rather than over like a widespread event. So these thunderstorms look to be moving fast. You can tell that by the way that the precipitable water values are moving out of here real fast. So that's how I would see this. I can't rule out a flash flooding event, mostly just because of the way that our infrastructure is set up. But I wouldn't be surprised by that either. NFL training camps open and practices start this week. Fall is around the corner. Indeed, me and Susan, we have willed fall to come in sooner by going shopping for Halloween, because that's what we do. I personally, I loved. We did buy some stuff. Yeah, yes, we did. I will say this: my favorite seasons are fall and winter. Obviously, I like spring too. The only thing I like about summer are 2 things: 1, baseball, and 2, my birthday, which is next week. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, I can do without summer. I'm not a beach person. I don't like being hot and humid. I sweat very easily because I'm Italian. I don't care. I am not happy with summer at all. And when it gets this hot, you can keep that. But the NFL training camps are definitely going to be opening. It's going to be fun to see how the teams do. I think the Jets are going to be better this year than a lot of people think. And my Chiefs should be pretty good too. So we'll see how that plays off. Giants, sorry. Maybe their line will improve. We'll see. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Well, thank you for the early happy birthdays, guys. Okay. Yeah, it was harsh this past week. And the worst part about it is that, and I noticed this when I was in Texas, is that if you have several days of this heat, and we're talking about weeks, you basically become accustomed to it, so it's not that bad. But when it basically slams you and then departs, that really impacts you a lot more because you don't have time to adjust to the heat. Whereas In the cold, it's the same thing. It can really wear on you because you don't have a chance for your body to adapt to it, other than wearing a coat and whatnot. So yeah, I mean that was rough. Let me share a little bit of good news though. You see this? This is the precipitable water values for Saturday and Sunday. Let's take a look at the 700 millibar relative humidity. Pull it up. There it is. I want to share some good news, and the good news is that look at all that dry air, dry, cooler air. Much lower low temperatures. You can open up the window, and more importantly, if you have any plans for any type of outdoor activities, you can't get better than that. It's going to be absolutely beautiful out there with comfortable conditions. Let's see, Gregory asks a question. Sorry, I'm a bit late. No problem. I'm sure you have already discussed it, but when do you see the tropics starting to fire up? It seems like they're quite quiet. Yep, we've been talking about it. The key is this right here, all this dry air. Climatologically speaking, we should see this in a La Nina season start to collapse this week. Right now, I'm not seeing a lot of indications of that actually panning out, but the consensus around everyone that I've been talking to is that August should see a rapid increase in activity, and especially in September. Now, quite frankly, the same people are saying that. Also, we're putting out the historic wording on the season. So I'm sure that they, in some ways, hope that there is more activity. But thus far, I haven't seen anything that really stands out right now. And when we took a look at the model guidance here, there just isn't anything that really stands out here at all. To say, oh, look, we have a lot of tropical activity. And let me put a little caveat on these models here. It's okay to look at and just say, okay, is there a signal showing up? Never, ever trust them verbatim. Ever. Okay? At least not until you get under 90 hours, really. I mean, you could do 120 just to kind of get an idea of where there is a storm threat. And beyond 120, then it's all basically a signal usage. And what I mean by signal is saying, okay, is there support for more activity? Not necessarily details, but at least development or favorable conditions. So when I look at this, well, there isn't much of a signal out there. So that's basically what we're seeing. But great question, Gregory. Let's see here. What would it take to get the active storm pattern in terms of rainfall like last year? Okay. You would need a fundamental change in the pattern, in which that you would need for the Western Atlantic Ridge to weaken a bit and the trough to deepen a bit. So basically what you're looking for is a shift in the seasonal pattern around September to support more low pressure development along the East Coast. Other than a tropical influence, that is pretty much it. Let's see here. Okay, good to see you, Garden. I hope everything works out. Have a good evening. Let's see here. Outstanding questions from everyone, as always, this evening. And it's 8:45, so we'll take a couple more questions, and then we will shut down for the night. Next week, I just want to bring this up. I will update you guys, but most likely we'll take the live chat. See, normally my birthday is next Wednesday, so there's a good chance that we'll take a break from the live chat unless there's something going on, and then we'll come back on that Monday evening, the next Monday evening, and do a live chat then. It just kind of depends whether, what plans. So definitely I'll send out an email on that to let you guys know. But the idea right now is that, hey, birthday week, I'm going to take the week off. unless there's a weather event, unless I get surprised by some tropical activity or severe thunderstorm event. And then we'll push that off to the next Monday, where we'll do a live chat then, like around August 9th or something of that nature. So we'll see how that works out. What does the Western Pacific look like? Tropical is also quiet. Yeah, it's hasn't really been all that active. Let's see if there's any current storms that are really standing out here. The Eastern Pacific, which is kind of unusual, has been far more active. Actually, it's been one of the most active regions in the world right now, is the Eastern Pacific. Western Pacific, quiet, very quiet. This has been a very weird season in terms of La Niñas. Typically in La Niñas, you'll see an active weather pattern, active tropical weather pattern in the Atlantic, in the Western Pacific, and the Indian Ocean. This year, it has been very active in the Eastern Pacific and dead quiet in the Western Pacific, Indian Ocean, and Atlantic. So literally the exact opposite of what you would expect a La Nina to be. So, and I don't know why. I mean, I know what's going on in the Atlantic with the Sahara dust, but I don't have an answer right now in terms of what's going on in the Western Pacific and why we're seeing what we're seeing. So I'm kind of stumped. So I know that there are people researching that. So I'll be very curious to see how that plays out, because it has been very, very quiet. Let's see here. So that was a great question. That's good. Let's go back to our radar and see if there's anything going on there. See if we see any development. Refresh this real fast. Yeah, nothing. If anything, we're seeing more convection taking hold here. Almost nothing here. You got a few weak cells producing very light rain. And the precipitation here, it's not reaching the ground all that much, because of the dry environment we were talking about. So you could see the warm front approaching. It's going to be a warm evening. Temperatures are in the lower to mid 80s in the Philadelphia metro. Wonderful. I'm just not seeing much in the way. Now, I will say this. With precipitable water values pushing around 2, if you do get to see something fire up in this gradient, they will produce some very heavy rainfall. Let's see. If anything, the areas where the HRM models convection building, it's actually dying out. Yeah, I agree. Let's refresh this again, see if we got any new data. Yeah, I mean, this is the exact opposite. It's literally the exact opposite of what we're actually seeing. So I don't see that around Harrisburg developing at all right now. I don't see any support for that. And even still, it just completely collapses once it hits the Delaware River. You can already tell humidity is on the increase. Yeah, you can definitely feel it already. But it's shocking just how far off. I'm curious. Let's take a look at the NAM guidance here. And it did the same error. So the mesoscale model guidance is just not handling the actual environment. And this is a great example of how you take the observations and you compare that to the models, not follow the models and then look at the observations. Okay, and this tells you just how much trouble you're seeing here in handling this guidance. Okay, so it's 8:50 p.m. I think we'll call it a night for tonight. We had a little bit of drama, but that's okay. I think everyone's had too much summer, too much heat, and people get very irritable very fast. So everyone chill in YouTube land. Of course, everyone in the premium live chat, thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it. It was absolutely outstanding. Again, I'll give you an update on our next live chat. Most likely it will be not this Monday, but the next one, but we'll have our next one, and we'll go from there. Unless something develops or we have like a major severe weather event, in which then I will pop on. Who would have thought that Virgo would be a thing for the summer? Yeah, tell me about it. That's something. That's something. That's how you know you have a weird summer going on, when you have Virgo in the summer. Well, that's it for tonight. Again, thank you for coming to our live chat. And as always, stay safe out there.